Now, the basic purpose of going with the entity bean is to record.
Hello?
Yeah,
Hello,
hello.
Atika?
Yes.
Hello, do you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you.
Atika, did you have class yesterday? I waited for until 8:15.
No, like, because we did not have this meeting link. That is the reason we did not have the class.
Okay, that's what I wanted to make sure. Okay. And that
Yeah.
EJB, one thing you're going, that day it was not working. The last one example,
Yes.
stateful
No, what actually is
bean.
happening over here is it is making a request. Now, because now over here we have this application. What was that name?
I don't see your screen, Atika.
Oh,
Am I
sorry.
missing something? Oh, thank you.
I think it was this one. Oh, I deleted, I guess. This one. This time. First, you need to deploy. Over here, if you see, this is the life cycle of the stateless, which means I guess this is. Mhm. So in the life cycle of the stateful session bean, you have the methods called post construct and then pre-destroy. In the life cycle of the session bean, you have got methods like post construct and pre-destroy. So public void initialize. So if you want some initialization task to be done, that will be done on this post construct. And then public void. You want to release some resources. When the bean is being destroyed, you want to perform some cleanup tasks. So that is done on pre-destroy. So these are the life cycle methods that will be called. Now over here, what you will do is you initialize all this stuff to null, and then email is equal to null, and then address is, or else over here what you can do is, let's say if you have to establish in the real time, what we do is, if in case if you have to establish the database connection and all that, you will do it in this, what is happening over here, expected. So if in case if you have to establish any database connection initialization task, that will be done over here. If in the release method, you should write the code for closing the connection. So over here, I'm just making it to null and then null. And in addition to this, you have got two others, that is pre-pass wait and then post activate. So public void save state. So if you want to save the state of the bean, then you will go with the pre-pass wait. At the rate pre-passivate. That is before the bean is moved to the pool. If the bean is inactive for a prolonged period of time, then the bean will be moved back to the pool. So before you move the bean back to the pool, what you can do is you can save its state. And then similarly, you have got one more method called post activate. After the bean has been activated, what you want to do? Public void. Post post pre-passivate and then post activate. So first this initialize method is called when after the bean has been constructed, and you will call, and the container will call the destroy method after the bean has been destroyed. If in case if the client is inactive for a huge duration, for long duration of time, then the bean will move to the pre-passivate state. And when the bean is being moved from the pre-passivate state to the post-activate state, then it will call the post-activate state. So before you move the bean to the passive, before the bean becomes passive, what you can do is you can store its state. And when it's becoming active, then you can restore its state. So over here, what we can do is, so private string name email, just for an example. You can store its state in some XYZ variable, and then when it is being activated, you can restore it back from the passive to the active state, as well as you can restore the state of the variables. And when it is being destroyed, you are setting it all the variables to null. Let us execute this. Right click. We need to run some other page, I guess. This one. Mhm. 1 minute. This is being called 2 times. This method, it should be called only once. If it is being called 2 times, then it means that it is creating a separate bean. Click submit. Let us have a look on this. Control F4. Ah, it is only once. This is correct because
Up also one bean initializes there, right?
okay, fine. Let me just delete this so that it will count.
Okay.
Yes, that method should be called only once because we are
Okay.
sending the request from the same client. See, bean is being initialized only once only. You don't find bean initialized again and again. This is correct, but somewhere it went wrong. Well, let me just clear all the screen. No, it is calling it twice. For each client request, it is now that is being treated as a separate request and it is creating a separate bean for it. Let me do it one thing. I'll send a request to the same page again. This is personal client. This one is address client. Fine. We'll just increment the counter value. This is not required. Fine. Been initialized one. Now let us send the second request.
Mm.
Now let me check. No. It is initializing it
Yeah.
again. But generally this doesn't happen in the stateful view. That is the reason this is one object and this is becoming another object. That is the reason these details are not being captured. But okay, this I will look into it because generally the concept what we have is this bean will be initialized only once for each client request. But the container it is treating these two requests as two separate requests. It is not treating both the requests as a
Mm.
request from the same client. It is treating that as the two separate requests. That is the reason it is creating one more bean for that client.
Mm.
And we are using request dispatcher only over here. What did I use? Address client is there, personal client. We are using request
Then
dispatcher. So this is same client only.
forward. Mm.
Same. We are just forwarding this to this page and from here. Okay. Let me just try to fix this. Is this creating alt insert? Sorry, not this one. at the rate EJB. Let us provide this injection size. This is what we call it as dependency injection. Let me build it. Mhm. If you see over here, it is being initialized twice for each request. Okay, I'll check this because the general concept is for each client it will allocate only one bean. Over here, it is allocating two beans. It is
Mm.
treating, even though the request is from the same client, but it is being treated as the another request. That is the reason it is we are getting null and null for this. But I have done it many of times. It will record these details. It should not initialize the bean again. I'll just check that
Okay, Atiya.
because if you observe over here, it is initialized and initialized twice.
Mm.
Now the concept over here, what we have is first time it is recording this. So if it is associating the bean to a specific client, it should like if it has created the bean, then this bean it should be associated to that client only. So this bean will hold the address of personal detail as well as shipping details of the same client. But what it is happening is it is behaving like a stateful rather than stateful. It is behaving like a stateless bean. For each request, it is creating a new client. Same only with it, nothing wrong. Okay. Anyway, I'll check that. I will move to the entity beans. Entity beans, they are quite simple. Uh, the purpose of going with the entity beans is, let's say, if I want to record, you're creating a form wherein you want to record all the details. So generally what we do is we connect to the database and then you load the class, driver name, etc., etc. All those details you do that. So rather than what we do is we map our Java objects to the tables in the database. That is all. I'll not be creating any table. I will just create a class and that class will be mapped to the table in the database. And I don't have to write the code for creating the table as well. That will be done by the system. Now, first let us create a EJB application. Now, once you have created this, let us First, let us create a form. I'll make use of this Windows IDE tools, and then let me keep it as register. And I'll just keep two fields, F name and then L name. Like based on your requirement, you can just add the number, the names and all. F name, L name, and then the button. Now, I want to, whatever details has been entered by the client, I want to map these details to the database. Now, what I do is entity beans, they are for mapping your details to the database. That is what you do over here is you will create an entity class that will represent your business data. Now, let me keep this name as register and the package is B. Now, I'll be storing it in this JDBC sample database and then click finish. Now, once you have this B, now it is mandatory all your beans, they should have, let me delete all this, all your beans, they should have one primary key. So in our case, we'll keep the primary key as the username because we don't want two usernames to be same. And the other one, what we have is L name, private string L name. So one is name, that is the username, you are keeping that as primary key, and the other one you are keeping it as L name. Now your L name, whenever you are annotating this with the ID attribute, this will serve as the primary key for your table. Generally, when you're creating the table, you will use the constraint primary key to define a primary key on a column. But when it comes over here, if you specify at the rate ID annotation, this field will be treated as username by the ORM, object relational mapping. Object relational mapping is objects you're mapping it to the database. Simple. That is it will create a table by name register with the two fields, username and then the L name, whereas the system will define the primary key constraint on the username. That is what. And it should have a no argument constructor, alt insert, and it should have public setter and then the getter methods. You should override equals method, alt insert, equals in the hash code method using username. You are done with this. Now you have created this one. This is annotated, your business entity, it is annotated with the rate, with the annotation at the rate entity. Now, the next what we do is, for this bean, you create a session bean. If you want to access register bean, let's say register app. Stateless, let me keep it as local. Now over here you can add business method. Let us add create, alt insert, alt insert, add business method, add register customer, It takes two parameters. One is username and the other one is name. You can just keep on adding. And then if it is successful, you will return success. So over here you have, let us write success. Now over here what you have to do is this username and then the password has to be recorded in the database. Now in order to do this operation, you require an entity manager called enterprise manager. Alt insert uh, use entity manager. Oh, over here already it has been done. Okay, add persist. So what you have to do is first you need to create an object. Register R is equal to new register. Username comma L name. After this has been created, you will take help of the entity manager em dot persist method to register this object into the system. So provide a convenience constructor that will take two arguments. Constructor is no arguments. Okay, fine. It's not taking. Let me save this. Come back to this. Okay, fine. Yeah. Now let us understand this. Over here now how it works is you are having a database. You have got the database. In the database by default, yes, you create the tables. And then what you are having is when you say object relational mapping, now you will create your register object over here. This is your register object. This has got two fields. One is F name and the other field what you have is L name. These two fields you have. And then this one is the primary key where username is the primary key of your table. What happened? Where username is the primary key of your table. Now, in the object relational mapping, what happens is you don't write create table etc statements. So when you say persist, what the system does is based on the properties whatever you have mentioned. If the table exists, well and good, and if the table does not exist, it will create a table and then it will create two columns over here, one by F name. It will create two columns, one for username and then for one for storing the password. Let's say the username value what you have entered is Tom, and then you have entered this value. Tom is the username, and let's say password you have entered is Jack. So these are the values what you have entered. So after you have entered this value, once you say persist, you don't have to write when you're calling this persist method. Persist. Okay, the zoom is 120. That is the problem. I hope it is visible screen. So when you're calling this persist, when you're calling the persist method, what it does is, let me just change the page layout orientation. So when you call the persist method, what it does is this details will be recorded in the database. So over here, whatever you have written, okay, it will be recorded in this row. Clear on this? Clear on this?
Atika, so basically this persist, when we call that persist, we don't have to write like prepared statement and insert into
No,
and execute and making the commit. So all those we don't have to do explicitly?
no, you don't have to do it. That is the advantage you get.
Okay. So where that connection part, where do we do that? Like initially, like establishing the connection with the, like we specify the URL, username, password, and driver name, and like four, I think four statements we write, I think,
Yeah,
right? Like, so those do we have to write?
welcome to that. Now, as you said, you're just calling persist and it is doing the job. But who is doing? How will you come to know which driver to be loaded, which database you have to connect, etc., etc., etc. So for that purpose, what we have is we have something that is called as persistence unit. So if I click over your configuration file, it has automatically created this persistence unit, or you can also create it. If you click over
Okay.
here on source, over here if you're clicking, over here you have this persistent unit. Now for this persistent unit, now the data source what you're using is jdbc/sample, and you are using all the classes, that is all the classes whatever are listed, it should be included. Now if I say you how to do that, now let me delete this. Now once I am deleting this, uh, right click, new, and then other. Over here you have got something called persistence, and you have persistent unit over here. This persistent unit will contain all the information. The name you are specifying, which ORM architecture you are using is Eclipse, library you are using Eclipse JPA 2.0, we'll come to that. And then okay, you can specify over here new database connection. Over here you can specify the JNDI name, whatever you want, test, and new database connection. So to which database you want to connect? I want to connect to this database. And then okay, you click okay. First let me click cancel. So now when you're doing this new, you need to create under glassfish. First you need to create the connection pool. Click. You can give any name. I'm giving it connection pool, XYZ pool name you can give, and then click next, and then finally you can click finish. For this application you're creating the data source, and then click new, other, glassfish, JDBC resource, use an existing pool, create next. So use this pool, use all the database defaults, click next, finally you need to click finish. And then next what you can do is, when you're creating this persistence file, right click, I did not add Y, here it should add under services. Let me do it one more time. Glassfish, JDBC connection pool you're creating on sample database, click next. This is fine, and finally you can click finish. See now it is created. No, I think this is ID. They might have made some changes to the ID. JDBC resource. Oh, it is not creating. Okay, I'll show you the alternative. If it is created, it will be listed over here. JDBC, no, not created. Okay, hold on for a second. Earlier up to 7.1 used to create directly, you were able to create it using NetBeans. Now you have to create it using the server. So let me tell you this one, okay, these JDBC resources, they will contain all the information about your connection object. So over here, what are we doing is we are using the sample pool itself. Over here, when you're creating this persistent unit, we are making use of the sample pool, and that sample pool will have all the information. Class, new, persistent unit. Click next, and then when you specify this data source, you're specifying create table, and then finally you click finish. Now this persistent unit will have all the information. So you have one more module that is called as persistent unit. I'll show you how to create the pool. Over here you have one more unit that is called as persistent unit. So this persistent unit will have all the information how to connect to your database. And this persistent unit will manage all your entity classes. It will manage all your entity classes. So when I say manage all your entity classes, let's say I'm having 10 objects. Object 1, let's say these two objects I'm having. So this entity manager will take care of object 1, object 2, and then object 3. The runtime representation of this persistent unit is called as persistence context. The runtime representation of persistent unit, this one. This is just a file. Persistent unit is just a description of the file that contains the information about the database and which ORM architecture it is using and what are the objects that it is handling. So, and the runtime representation for this one is the persistence context, wherein it will be handling the objects literally. So it is managing all your objects. Now for this, okay, we have got, so one more stuff that is called as entity manager. This entity manager will have reference to this persistence context. This entity manager will have reference to this persistence context. And this entity manager will have all the method called persist. So if this entity manager is calling persist method on this object, then this object will be saved to the database. Is it clear?
Yeah.
Sorry, can you explain it again?
Okay, fine. Persistent unit. Your persistent unit will just contain the information. What is the data source to which
First,
it is?
the black box is a persistent or the blue one.
Yeah, this one is persistent unit. Persistence unit. So this is called as persistence unit. So this will just
And
contain information.
and the blue one, blue
This is the real-time
rectangle
stuff.
box.
So this persistent unit will just contain all the information, that is to which data source it has to connect. Let me just make it black. That is, it will maintain that it has to connect to this database, and then these are the objects that it has to maintain. It is a record. So at the runtime, what happens is it will create the persistence context. From the persistence unit, it will take all the information from the persistence unit, and at runtime it creates a representation of this object. So runtime representation of persistence unit is called as persistence context. So this is called as persistence context. Now this persistence unit is also given the name. Let me just remove this stuff so that we get some space. Now over here, the name of this persistence unit, what you have is Enterprise Application 2 EJB unit. If you see over here, this is containing all the information. And the name what is given to this one is Enterprise Application 2 XYZ. So it is user defined, you can give any name. That is the default name generated. This is the name of this persistence unit. Now, next what you have is persistence context. We said that the runtime representation of the persistence unit is called as persistence context. Now, when you're going to this register, so register app, you are getting a reference. Now you're getting a reference to what? Enterprise application 2 EJB hyphen EPU, something whatever you have given, because that is the name that has been recorded in this file. So this one. So if you want to refer to this, so what you do is you will make use of this name. So this is what we are calling this as persistence context. So your persistence context is the runtime representation of the persistence unit. So this is what you have. This is your persistence context. It is a runtime representation of the persistence unit. So this is the runtime representation of the persistence unit. Now, if in case if you're having these many objects, your persistence context will maintain the objects whatever are listed. Over here you have two, so this will also maintain the same number of objects. Clear on this?
And what is that blue rectangle in the middle? Second, this is entity plus.
Which one? This one. This one you're speaking.
Between the two black rectangle.
Also this one. Oh, we will come to this. So this is the object representation. So you're having these two fields. Oh, sorry, let me make it some other color. Okay, fine. So this is how it looks. Now next what you have is, now whenever you're performing the operations, you will perform it on the objects. Whenever we are performing the operation, you will perform all the operations on the object. So let's say, okay, you are creating one object, and then okay, what you do is you call this em.persist. So your entity manager will manage the life cycle of the instances that are there in the persistence context. So it will maintain the life cycle, manage the life cycle of this bean as well as this bean. Your persistence context will manage the life cycle. When this bean should be created, when this bean should be destroyed, when it has to flush the details of this bean to the container. So this will be managed by your entity manager. So your entity manager will take care of the life cycle of your entity beans. So over here, this entity manager is managing the life cycle of the beans that are associated with this persistence context. Now when you say em.persist, and then you specify the object, this one, when you say em.persist and when you specify the object, what it does is the entity manager has got a method called persist that will move this object. That is, it will move the details of this object to the database. You don't have to write any code. You just say persist and your object details will be stored into the database. So it will create one row in the database by name Tom and then Jack. Clear on this? Now let's say, okay, if you're making a change to the object, you have changed this username to, let's say, okay, you have changed this username to Mike. So when you are changing the username to some other name, then similarly in the entity manager, you have got another method called merge, that is update. You don't have to run the update query to update the object. You just call merge. So what it does is your entity manager will move this object. The details of this object will be updated with the database. So it will update this to. So we are not going to write any SQL statement to perform the operation. You have to just invoke the methods and the underlying persistence manager will carry out the task for us. So object relational mapping, the reason it is called as ORM or object relational mapping is because these are the objects that we are mapping into the tables in the database. Clear with this?
This mapping is done by JDBC object, right?
No, it is a framework that will do this. We have a framework
But
that
database like EJB, we can connect like a different, like a JDBC object, Hibernate object.
yeah,
So
something like that you can see. Yes, Hibernate. Hibernate again is a ORM framework. EJB is also a ORM framework, but EJB has got many drawbacks and many pitfalls are there in the EJB. It is difficult to use, and the API is also quite difficult. So that is the reason again from EJB we have migrated to Hibernate. It is similar to Hibernate. If you are familiar with the Hibernate, it is similar to that of the Hibernate. Hibernate is one of the ORM framework and JPA is another ORM framework.
right now we use JPA, you say, or JDBC?
Right now we are using persistence API, JPA.
Okay, persistence API.
Yeah, JPA, it is JPA. You can see over Java X dot persistence. Is this diagram clear? Flow?
Yes.
Because you will come across the same terms. So,
And I think, can you go to the Project Explorer for a second in the NetBeans?
okay. Over here, you
Here,
just
when we create the EJB project, so does it create 3 folders in?
yes, it creates the folder by default.
Okay, but it's not chronological under enterprise application 1 or 2. This seems like all are same row.
I did not get your question.
Like EJB and where these 2 folders should be inside the enterprise application or is outside?
It should be inside this way. If you click on this or expand, you will get two. It is not mandatory that it should be one after the another. Over here you are having one after the another. It is not mandatory. It can be anywhere. Let me close all this stuff. So your EJB application will consist of 3 modules. This will contain all beans and this one will contain your view elements and this one if you see this is a combination of these. Clear with this?
Oh, okay, it contains both oil and
Yeah, you can like add Java EE module. So if you have any open projects, then again you can add some more additional modules to this. So let us execute this. Let me check whether we already have a table by name register. We are establishing this connection on this database. Right click and then say connect. We have registered. Okay, fine. So over here, if you observe, okay, we don't have any table by name register. So it should create a table by name register over here. Clean and build. right click and then run. Oh, I think we did not create a controller. Let me create. Right click. What is the name we have given? Register client. Where is it servlet?
Is that controller is the persistent manager class?
No, it is a client.
Atika, you have shown some diagram when you were explaining the EJB concept. So one is the EJB container and another one is the servlet one, if I remember. So here we call the servlet as the client because it is a client to all the business logic available in the EJB container. Is that why here we call this servlet as a client servlet?
Yes, because it is using the services of EJB. You understood
Okay.
it correctly. So register app dot add user. So request dot get parameter of what did we give if name, I guess. So let us execute it one more time. Resource not found with a spelling mistake. So let me check whether the information has been entered in web.xml file or not. It is there. Let me just run it one more time. Run. Okay, we should check whether this information is recorded in the database or not. So refresh. Where is this? You find a table by name register over here, and then the username and then the name f name, because we have specified at the data ID annotation. So whatever details we have entered, it has recorded those details into the database. Clear with this? So you don't have to write any SQL statement. The entity manager will do the task. Sorry, the framework will do it for you. Clear on this?
Yes, Sadhika. Yeah, I understand the concept. Yeah.
So simple, rather than rewriting the SQL statements, rather than you creating the table and then retrieving the values and then writing the insert statement, generally again we do this way. First you will load it and then you will establish the connection and then we create a pre-page statement and then uh, you write execute query. This all stuff we do rather than you doing it, the system is doing it for you. So rather than you writing the same code again and again, we have a framework that is called as ORM. This ORM stands for the object relation mapping. Your object is a register and the relation is the stuff what it has created in the table. Your relation is a table. So objects from Java are mapped to relation in database. This is what it is doing. So over here you have created a class called register, which is your object and which has got two things, string, username and then endname. So when it is mapping this to the database, to the table, it has created internally, and this statement has been executed, create table register and then username var2 of 255. It will take by default, you can specify the column length as well, and then it has primary key annotated with the primary key name var2 of 255. So the statement has been executed by the ORM. We did not execute it. ORM has executed the statement. And then when you say em.persist SIST of object of register R. So internally insert into the table and then it will make use of this username comma name values. Whatever you have entered, it will pull it from this object. Get username and then dot get. So we just write the statement in terms of em versus, but the underlying ORM framework will convert it into the corresponding SQL queries. It is not like that the SQL statements are not executed on the database. It executes SQL statement only on the database, but rather than rewriting it, you just specify in terms of object em.persist of r, store this register object. So it will this query internally, this is converted into this SQL query. Insert into register the field names and values whatever we are providing, whatever values we want to enter, it will be retrieved from this database. So this is how it works internally. So this conversion is being done by the ORM. So the framework what we are using is, if you click over here, configuration file. Oh yeah, this is the Eclipse JPA 2.1. This is the framework what you are using. Where is that name? Persistent provider what you're using is this one. And then okay, you're specifying it as create. You're specifying action as create data. If the table does not exist, schema generation. If the table does not exist, it should create the table by that. Now, one more we will write to retrieve all the objects. Now let us go to the table. We will populate some data. Click over here, add. So let's say this is the data what you have in the table, and I want to pull all this data. So duplicate here. So done. So I want to pull all this data from the table. So if you have to pull all this data from the table, in general what we do is we write our SQL statements, select etc. Now let us see how to do that. How we will do it with the help of ORM framework. So again, alt insert, add business method, get all details. So it should return you a list of objects or a list of register objects. Now you don't have to do anything. It's quite simple. So array list of register, that is list new array list. First you need to create a query object we have em dot create query. So what you have, select R from register R. So it will give you all the details. Import javax.persistence.query, and then if you have to execute this q dot get result list. So over here you're not writing any results at r dot get string and then r dot, you're not writing that. System what it is doing, it is getting all the rows and it is converting into a list of objects. It is getting all the data and is converting into the list of objects. Is this statement clear?
Yes.
In general, okay,
Yes.
if you remember, you will write all the steps, result set, etc., etc. You will write, and then you will put all
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
details.
I remember we have to parse. We have to go by each record and then retrieve all the fields and put it in the object, and then we return that
Correct.
object.
So rather than you writing that code,
Time I asked, like, so do I have to do for each field? What if I have like 10 or 15 fields, and for you said like until the framework comes, and we have to let's do it manually like for each field.
yes, rather than you doing it, this is being done by the framework. Internally, it will also do the same, but that has become a library. And now what you do is get all the details. So where is that? I'll just take help of I'll create one link over here. AHF get all details. I'm just making it simple. I'll create a servlet for this because we need to call the enterprise B. Alt insert, get the reference for enterprise bean. Register app dot, sorry, what was that? Get all details dot. Let us save this. I think we did not save. So that is the reason changes are not getting reflected. Oh, get all details. It is, it does not deploy it. List, array list of, what is that? Register. Add the corresponding import statements. Okay. What is the other rule? Oh, sorry, here we need to add the import statement. Okay. Now I'll print it here itself for register R, get each object and print it. But if you are doing it, what you have to do is you need to put this array list um, into the request scope and then pass it to the JSP page. Alt insert. Let me add a toString method. So done. So let us execute this. Wow, error. Clear with this? We did not format it, but when you are doing it, you need to format this into a table. And then
just one time from this one, the retrieval of the data details from HTML all the way to the bean, like with the code itself. Can you traverse it like one quick time?
Okay.
Yeah.
So first, what we have is link. We have link. Then from the link, you are going to this register client. This is your servlet. Then after you go from this, from there you're calling this register dot get all details. So that is from here you are moving to your EJB. So in this EJB, you are calling register local. Sorry, from this register bean, it is executing get all details method. And when it is executing this, it has created a list of students. Sorry, register list of this objects. After it has created the list of this objects, then what are you doing is you are returning this stuff back to EJB. Sorry, back to this servlet. So now, so what are you returning is list of register. This you are returning it back. So over here you have got list of register. So this has been returned from your EJB to this. After you do this, then you are executing this out.println in the servlet. So again you're back to your servlet wherein out.println of you're pulling each object one by one and then you are printing it. Clear with this?
Yeah, just that part I think I missed. While traversing all the register objects, the list of register objects in the servlet, we are constructing one string containing all the records and returning it to the HTML. That's what we are doing. I say all the records got printed, but how we are not returning each record by record. We are just concatenating the values of all the records and then returning it to the HTML.
Over here what you see is in this we are just writing out.println. So it is printing one by one, but because we are not using any HTML formatting tag, you write BR.
Okay. This part I
Then it
think
will
that
print
one
it
thing I
onto
missed
this is
here.
again it is one record by record. And then after you
Okay.
get the record, it depends like if you want to format into the table style, okay, you can just put this table tag in format out.
Okay. I got. Okay, that is what I wanted to know. Okay. When like in the real time application, when they are printing all the records, they are doing that table and then row or
Mm,
unordered list or something like that. They are doing and
yes.
then they are printing in. Okay.
Like you should not do the write this code in this because it becomes difficult. You should send this
Uh-huh.
object to the JSP page.
Okay.
You should not write it over here because if in case if you want to change some details etc., it becomes difficult.
Then okay, yeah. So what is the difference in touching this one and the JSP? Both needs deployment or like how it differs? So how life becomes easier when we put all this in JSP, and even if we have to change it, it becomes like
Now look, to perform all the operations, like now if you observe this, see the way we are doing. Now I should know what are you doing over here is you're putting HTML into Java. You're
yeah.
putting HTML code into Java. Web designing and web development, these two are two different fields. Web designing is separate field and web development is separate. Now, if I'm putting all the stuff into servlet code itself, it becomes very much difficult for me to design the web page because I have to type all this stuff manually, and it is not reusable as well. Let's say you have got some cascading styles, style sheets and all. In HTML, it is a reusable element. Over here, you cannot do anything. So slight modification also, you have to go to your servlet. That is, you need to modify the Java code. Because over here, we are taking help of NetBeans IDE. Again, you need to compile the application, test it again, and one more deploy it one more time. But if you're taking help of JSP pages or HTML, if you're taking help of JSP pages to create your web applications for front end, then the advantage what you get is many stuff is Dreamweaver, etc. These are the soft tools that are available with the help of which you can create the web pages. So it is like drag and drop, easily you can create it, and web designers will take care of designing the web pages, and whereas web developers they will take care of um, writing the code for the server. So parallel operations can take place because designing and
Okay.
development both are difficult. Now over here, if I have to make changes, any changes to the cell color, because if you have observed generally records, they will print the colors, that is the cell fields. It will be printed in the alternate fashion. So as you get it this way, okay, most of the time it will be this way. Let's say if I have a table, let's say we have this table, and most of the time you find the web page record, they will have two alternating colors. They'll make use of two bands. If you observe, they'll make use of two bands. If in case if this is
Mm.
being done in HTML, then you have to write a lot of code to get this also. But whereas this will come into web designing. So designers will take care of all this, whereas when
Okay.
developers will take care of the server side code.
Okay.
Now again doing this, it is headache over here.
One more question in terms of building it. So even if I change the JSP page, I'm not touching any Java code, but if I touch the JSP code only, how does it differ in terms in the deployment point of view? Build and deployment point of view, how does it differ? Do I have to just in case if I touch only the JSP page, can I just copy that page alone to the say web server without building it and deploying it?
Now again the JSP execution of JSP pages, it will take place in two phases. One is compilation phase, the second page what we have is
Yeah,
sorry,
yeah, I remember
translation
you
and then
explained.
compilation.
That is also equal to some servlet you said, right? Like internally it is
Yes.
converted to a servlet content.
Mm,
Okay, so that also then needs a build and deployment.
yes, because it is getting converted.
Okay, okay, got it. Okay.
Now it is printed properly. Now
Okay,
again you can all of
got it.
the table elements and then you can format it properly.
Mm.
This is the formatting at the first level. So you will not get any tables of this type on the web. So you have to format it properly based on the web design, based on the theme of the website, and then display the details to you say to the user. So front-end designing will be done with the help of CSS, HTML. We have tools are available for that.
Okay.
So I'll just send you one document,
Uh,
student tab. So this has got, where did it open? Okay, fine. Let me just execute it. Like merge and remove you have to do. Hassan, is it clear? Let me check, is Hassan there or left?
I'm here.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
I'll just show you one solution file. So that is completely CRUD operations: create, read, and update and deploy. So you have got view all the students. So XYZ, these many students, they are added. And then if you want, okay, you can add a student. This is your persist method. And then you can search for a student. Hassan, student ID, phone number, major, dorm name, address. So all the students are added. Search for a student. So this is your find method. And then, okay, let's say if I want to delete this, is deleted. And then if you want to update, you can update. I'm just changing it to the XXX6. So this is done all with the help of entity beans only, using 4 methods. I'll send you this file. Just have a look at this. It will cover all the methods. So with this, we'll wind up for today. Anyway, like the same topic, we are going to continue in the Hibernate more in detail.
Okay.
Okay. Just try to
Okay.
keep going
Thank you very
up on
much.
this. Need not concentrate much on EJB because it has been replaced by Hibernate. You might have some.
Atika,
Yes.
tentatively, like how many more sessions we will have so that I can plan accordingly. That's why I'm asking. How much content is left out, and like it might extend. I understand, but how many more sessions we are going to have?
Okay, we are left with Spring, Hibernate, and web services.
Okay, web services.
So for each, okay, if you keep 5 sessions, 4, 5, 4, 5, it will take. So minimum it is 12 or maximum it will be 15.
Sorry, it's
We are left,
I could not hear it
we
clearly.
are left with Spring, Hibernate, and web services.
Okay.
It will take either 4 or 5 sessions. So minimum if I say
Oh,
it will be for 3 the 12, and maximum if I say it will be 15. I think we will be able to wind up by March 15th.
March 15th. Okay. Okay, Atia.
Okay, this is a sample project. I'll send you for this one, the one what I have discussed. You just try to go through that.
Okay.
Okay, Chef. That's all for today. Bye bye.
Mhm.
Thank you.